It is with a very warm heart that we welcome you to today's episode of Tax Matters. My name is Olumuyiwa Matuloko, and we do hope that business is going on fine and that you are heeding the call to pay your taxes as and when due. You will agree with us that it pays to pay your taxes. On today's episode of the program, we will be looking at the topic taxation as an instrument for economic development, the role of taxation in national development. And to discuss this topic with us is no less a person than the coordinating director in charge of direct reports group at the Federal Inland Revenue Service. We're talking about Ms. Quinsley Safuratu Segosime, who in that capacity oversees all the crucial departments and divisions and units that report directly to the executive chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service. Ms. Segosime is a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria, ICANN, a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, CITN, and an associate member of the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators. In addition, she is an alumnus of the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, NIPS, Kuru in Jos Plateau State, which gives her the right to use the appellation MNI, Member National Institute. Before we sit down with Ms. Segosime, let us share with you this drama piece, which we consider a fitting background to the topic of the day.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, madam.
Yes, sir. What can I do for you, sir?
I beg, I want make you help me. Help me, I beg you in the name of God. See me at the handicapped man. I don't know how much I make. Why they can't bring this kind of letter to me? Sir, I know they make profits. Business na zero. I should have seen this one at 7 between I get. The profits where they make sense. You know, reach me and my family to job. They can't bring this kind of letter. Where I want to see the money pay?
Sir, this is a notice of tax default, sir.
I see.
Obviously, you haven't been paying your tax.
Don't be say I don't want to pay. My people don't be say I don't want to pay. But I beg, where I know they make money, which money I want to pay? No money now. My sister, I beg, you can help me.
Okay, what do you want me to do for you?
Help me. I don't want to pay. We don't see money job. I go just kill myself for government's neck. I go die. I go die.
Good afternoon, Chief.
Olu.
Him, sir.
Olu is my friend now. Who be your friend? Huh? Olu Shada. I know be Olu. You don't know me. Why you dey lie? What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you too? Why are you like this? Why are you like that too? Huh? I don't know him. That's why you know the lie. Big man like you dey lie. No be Olu Shada.
Yes, the name of the form actually says Olu Shada.
I spoke with you yesterday. I congratulated you that you have just won multi-million naira contract. I even said I'll be coming to celebrate with you. Olu, I beg. See, the only way you know yesterday different from the only way you see now. I be a lie. Olu, Olu, I don't know you. You get accident. So you get accident? Leave me. Huh? You get accident? Leave my leg.
I understand. Oh, we see people like him every day. People will do anything just to avert tax.
Oh, so you don't want to pay your tax? Huh? What is this? Leave me, leave my baby. Put this thing down. Take. Leave me. Olu, see what you reduced yourself to. Simply because you don't want to pay the tax. Huh? Huh? Too bad. I'm disappointed in you. If you don't pay tax, how do you expect the government to provide the development? Tell me. You see, let me just tell you something. It's not as if I don't want to pay that. That is the original Olu. Can you see now? Can you see the original Olu? This is the Olu I know. You see? You don't want to pay tax. If you don't pay your tax, I mean, what do you expect government to do? It pays to pay your tax. So government can provide good roads, health, electricity, and all other amenities. Try and pay your tax. You understand? I don't hear. You don't hear.
Madam, you are welcome to Tax Matters.
Thank you very much.
We are looking at the role of taxation in economic development, not as specific tax types, because we think that we have to place in the right perspective the role that taxation has to play in moving this country forward. And we thought that you, being a well-rounded tax practitioner, a tax administrator, will be able to shed light on this. What, in your opinion, is the connection between taxation and economic development?
The role of taxation in economic development is like asking about life and death, because taxation provides the nexus between the citizens and government, between the governed and the government. The role of taxation in economic development is a very wide one. You are asking about what does taxation do for the citizens? Without taxation, those beautiful roads will not be there today. Without taxation, the security will not be there today. Without taxation, no water. It is taxation that provides those beautiful hospitals you see. It is from this funding that government is able to provide all these beautiful things to people.
But Nigerians would say that most of the money that government uses comes from oil, from petroleum.
Yes, money comes from the sale of crude, but petroleum is a wasting asset and it will soon go. It is important that everybody plays their own part. It is important that you pay your own taxes, because that is the connection between you and government. That's what will give you the authority to demand from government what these monies are used for. So for me, taxation is not about just collecting money. It's also about transparency and accountability. Because with that, you'll be able to hold any government accountable. Taxation is key to economic development, because the more that the economy is booming, the more we'll be able to get from taxation, the more life will be better.
The Federal Revenue Service has gone through tremendous reform in the last decade. Would you want to look at the taxation landscape today compared to about 10 years, that is before the reform?
10 years ago, before 2004, you ask for assessment and then you now pay your taxes. You take your check there. They will not collect the checks and take them to the bank. But as I speak today, we have no business with any payment instruments. What happens today is that when an assessment is raised on a taxpayer, or when the taxpayer, because we run a self-assessment system, when a taxpayer assesses itself, he files the returns and goes to any bank to pay the tax. So the tax goes through what we call the pay direct. And the pay direct will automatically sweep this to the central bank. And this will be reflected in our web portal. Our web portal is the Inland Revenue Service ledger. So our ledger actually is electronically driven. You cannot compare it to before 2004, where you have to manually write all the transactions that have taken place in the ledger or in the books of accounts. That is on one angle. There are quite a number of other initiatives that is taking place here today. For instance, we have the Integrated Tax Administration System. That one, as we go forward, the taxpayers will be able to file their returns electronically. Assessments, you'll be able to generate your assessment. And of course, you will also be able to pay electronically. We're discussing with the banks on e-tax, and we're on vConnect as I speak today. As you pay for your ticket, the VAT is automatically swept to our system. So, and from our own data, I can tell you that 95% of our staff are now computer literate. So it's not like what it was in 2004. We have also restructured our system. For instance, before 2004, if you have to pay VAT, you have to go to one office, and then you go and pay company income tax in another office. But today, we are running an integrated tax system. So for me, a lot has happened.
Talking about initiatives, talking about new processes, new ideas, in recent time, we've come across new initiatives from the FRS. We talk about presumptive tax. Now you're talking about transfer pricing. A few weeks ago, a training workshop was held on exchange of information. What are these new concepts, new ideas, new initiatives meant to achieve in the tax system? Let's take them one by one. Transfer pricing. What's that?
Transfer pricing is about curbing tax evasion. It's about complying with the tax laws. It's in line with the Companies Income Tax Act. Because the Company Income Tax allows us to develop regulations to be able to address certain issues. That's why we were able to come up with that regulation, so that where we have problems, we'll also be able to address the issues and serve the taxpayers better. It's about shifting of profits from this country to another country. It's about pricing. A multinational brings an asset, if for purposes of this discussion, of about 100 million, and it calls it 200 million. If we are having a database where we'll be able to carry out comparable price and make necessary adjustments. So transfer pricing is not a new law, it's a regulation to help multinationals to comply with our tax laws and thereby curb tax evasion.
What about presumptive tax?
In line with the relevant regulation or the relevant law in the Personal Income Tax Act, you can also develop a regulation to determine the turnover or profit of an individual or an enterprise and decide what the tax will be. You presume presumptive tax, as it says. You presume how much it should be. In Ghana, for purposes of this discussion, the Transport Association They are in a net. They have come together. They pay something every month. So at the end of the year, they are able to aggregate what they pay. They have come to an agreement with the Revenue Authority. That's the kind of movement we're going into, to say, okay, if these are people that are taxi drivers, for instance, we estimate what your profit or your turnover should be, and therefore you pay this. Vulcanizers, for instance, we say this is how much your turnover should be. We will come to such agreements before we roll it out. But we're getting the papers ready. We're getting to sensitize the individuals and enterprise so that we can actually go out and use the regulation. Before the end of the year, we'll be able to roll out a regulation and actually go into presumptive taxation, which is actually something that will help the informal sector. We'll be able to know where you are. As we move on, we'll be able to partner with other government agencies like SMEDAN and also tell them how to keep their records. Because some people believe that, oh, the tax people are coming, I will not keep records. But it's possible that when you keep your records, you find out that you may have something small or no tax at all to pay. So it's important that you keep proper books of accounts.
Another one is exchange of information. About 3 weeks ago, the FRS collaborated with the Joint Tax Board to conduct a training workshop for officials of the State Boards of Internal Revenue and the FIRS. What's the exchange of information thing about?
The exchange of information, like as it goes, exchange of information. Anybody who has information has power. An exchange of information will help us. Although exchange of information is between a tax jurisdiction and another, usually between countries, it can also be done here in Nigeria where our taxation is not integrated into one. In line with our constitution, the states collect personal income tax in their relevant jurisdiction. The FRS collects personal income tax for Federal Capital Territory, the Armed Forces, Police, and the Diplomatic Corps. Then other taxes like company income tax and others. You see an individual living in Abuja, for purposes of this discussion, has houses in Lagos. He tells the tax officials here that, look, this is my house and this is what I earn. How are we going to know that he has a house in Lagos or in Port Harcourt and he is collecting rent from there? His personal income tax is not only based on salary, it's based on the statutory total income. So it is important that all his income are aggregated together for us to be able to determine. And how will we do that? From exchange of information, we will be able to know that such a house exists. With exchange of information, we will also be able to build data and build information to be able to collect and tax and collect the right amount of tax.
Chineke me, they don't increase my salary money. No be mistake. Oga accountant do so. Papa Junior, you never hear of Peter. Now the new MD be that. Talk now.
Peter, na Personal Income Tax Amendment Act, where Mr. President just signed for law to better the life of him people, so them to go get more money to enjoy with them family. You see this amended act, they don't reduce the tax with the on top your salary money. They can't increase consolidated allowance money where we go to get every month. And you know, say, now the president will listen if you do better thing for your people.
Ah, Mr. President, you do well, oh. The blessing you they think of me when you they sign this bitter. Now I feel do boku things this year. I feel rent shop for Mama Junior, buy textbook for Junior, send money go village, make the thing begin build my house.
So you say I'm the landlord?
Of course. Oh, you think I call country for you? Peter, Peter, hey, Peter.
JTB, creating a tax-friendly environment.
Madam, you're welcome back. Oftentimes, people complain about paying too many taxes. Sometimes they say they are paying to too many layers of government. And what that brings to our mind is the delineation of jurisdiction among the three tiers of government. Why do you think people complain that they pay too many taxes?
Well, let me give you the architecture. Taxes are collected by the three tiers of government. Federal, by Federal Inland Revenue Service. States, by the respective states' internal revenue service. Then the local government also collects their own. Everybody has his own list or taxes that they collect. The Federal Inland Revenue Service collects petroleum profit tax, company income tax, value-added tax, education tax, personal income tax for armed forces, for Federal Capital Territory, armed forces, police, and the diplomatic corps. Capital gains tax, stamp duties in respect of instruments by companies, and that's in the FCT. Information technology levy for the states. They collect personal income tax, pay as you earn. They also do direct assessments, withholding tax for individuals as well. Mm-hmm. Of course, you know, withholding tax is not a separate type of tax. Mm-hmm. Withholding tax is payment on account. Okay. And we also do for companies and individuals in the Federal Capital Territory. And then they also do capital gains for individuals. They do stamp duties on instruments as well for individuals. They do pools betting and lotteries, road taxes, development levies, naming of streets, registration fees, and the right of occupancy on land owned by individuals in urban areas. Market taxes and levies. For local governments, they do radio and television licensing fees, vehicle radio licensing fees, bicycles, trucks, canoes, naming of street registration fees, motor park levies, domestic animal fees, a host of others, you know, like this customary burial ground fees and permit for outboard advertising, off and on licenses and all that.
So if the taxes and charges and maybe levies are so clearly spelled out, why do you think there's so much complaint about paying to? Is it because the list is long, or because some of the stakeholders, maybe the states, are they encroaching in the territory of the FIRS, of the federal government, or is it the federal government encroaching on the territory of the states?
For me, I think this list is very clear, except that from time to time, we need to do a lot of publicity around this list. It's not FRS alone. It's FRS or probably the Joint Tax Board. Because of course, you know, Joint Tax Board, FRS is a member of the Joint Tax Board as well as all the states. Yeah. So at that level, this kind of publicity can actually take place. I don't see anything that is multiple in it. There is clarity, and this has been approved by the Joint Tax Board and published. Probably from time to time, there is need to continuously educate people. There is need to continuously talk to taxpayers so that they can understand and they can also know that this is the delineation for the taxing authorities.
One cannot but agree with Ms. Egosime. We recall that a few episodes ago, a colleague of Ms. Egosime at the FIRS, in the person of Mr. Mark Anthony Dike, who also, by God's special grace, is the incumbent president of the CIT and the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, also spoke about this approved list for collection. And we do agree that the list is indeed a very, very clear one. The delineation of jurisdictions is very, very clear. And like somebody also said on this program a few months ago, until Act number 21 of 1998 is amended, it remains the law. And so, all tiers of government must endeavor to obey the law. We are afraid that we have to call it a day because we have to move over for the next program. And that means that we want to see you again around next week on this same station, same day of the week, same time of the day for a fresh episode of Tax Matters. Thank you for watching and have a blessed week ahead.